Come to think of it, if you had enough fuck you money, what would you buy? Maybe a Lambo? Perhaps a Bugatti? Or fucking Twitter?
Here's Johnny!
A real-life Tony Stark chose to buy a challenge. He bought the Internet Corner, which gave birth to the cesspool of rotten ideas and an echo chamber of leftist ideologies and politics that drags the Western civilization to newer lows. But I digress. That must have been Tumblr or 4chan. Let's go back at the beginning of the year, in January of 2022. Before Ukraine, the rate hikes, and the inflation hitting the average consumer left and right, Elon Musk started dollar cost averaging Twitter shares. Come April, he managed to acquire 9.1% of the company. The board of directors offered Elon a seat, which he ended up declining. He wanted full control of the company, so he made a buyout offer of $43 billion.
1 billion, gajillion, fifillion, shabadoo.
It was met with a poison pill strategy. After extensive Wikipedia research, I figured out that they tried to poison Mr. Musk so he wouldn't be able to go through with the acquisition. Long story short, come April 25th, the board decided to accept the offer of $44 billion, so the bird would be taken private and off the New York Stock Exchange.
You're fired.
It should come to no surprise that the big tech firms started offloading people from their workforce. What fascinates me the most is the amount of backlash that Mr. Musk has received over the course of this firing session, as if his actions are not following the clear pattern of the whole economical situation the technological sector is currently facing, just to a greater extent. Firstly, let's look at the pandemic boom and the rise of the tech companies. During the lockdown, the tech firms witnessed an increase in demand of their services, and they saw their revenue skyrocketing. They applied strategical growth, invested into higher risk projects, and increased their labor force. Basically, went full YOLO. By the end of it, the growth came at a halt. You could say their services and products came to maturity. As a result, the demand dropped dramatically. Furthermore, when the dust of the euphoric growth cleared, they came to the realization that it wasn't going to last. They fucked up.
I declare bankruptcy!
They had hoped for an endless growth. The principle of stonks only go up. But they were wrong. The recession hit, the companies started bleeding money, and they had to get rid of the unnecessary liabilities.
Welcome to a day in my life as a Twitter employee. So I started my morning off with an iced matcha from the perch. Look how delicious this food looks. I didn't do any yoga. Went up to the rooftop. We enjoyed the beautiful weather.
I do think we've failed in a couple of ways, and I want to admit that.
Failure comes with a big penalty. You're fired.
Now, in regards to the massive layoffs, I believe that the option to cut down the percentage of workforce to have is quite extensive, until we dig down to the productivity of the said labor force. If their contribution to the said business is negligible, then it was the right decision. Probably. One thing I cannot wrap my head around is the fact that the employees had a list of demands from the new management before the buyout was even finalized. This exhibits that the people working for Twitter had been spoiled by the previous management, enjoying privileges and perks that cannot be supported by the current financial capabilities of the company. Plus, they had filled the necessary positions with more than needed personnel. From my perspective, Twitter is a business, which in order to keep functioning and existing, needs to turn in a profit. Shocker, I know. Mr. Musk is the owner of the said business, and he is the one that bears the responsibility to keep it afloat, cut down its expenses, and increase its sources of revenue. I do not think that the verification tick was the best way to raise this revenue, but it was a step towards the right direction nonetheless.
Why should your right to freedom of speech trump a trans person's right not to be offended?
Because in order to be able to think, you have to risk being offensive. I mean, look at the conversation we're having right now. You know, like you're certainly willing to risk offending me in the pursuit of truth. Why should you have the right to do that?
Twitter has been under fire since President Trump's ban from it during his tenure. It has been scrutinized for restricting, allegedly, the right of free speech on its platform by the right-leaning people of its user base. First off, the company gets to decide, from my point of view, what kind of opinions get to be published on its platform. Secondly, the First Amendment protects the freedom of speech. and it is a constitutional right. According to the previous statements, it should not claim that it provides and promotes said freedom of speech, as it falls under false advertising. Now, under Elon's management, the so-called controversial figures have made their return on the platform, although apparently not all have stayed for long. So, is Twitter really a platform where you can exercise your right to freedom of speech under Mr. Musk's leadership? Because when it comes down to free speech, either everyone is protected or no one is. One thing is certain, no matter whether Twitter goes bankrupt or Elon manages to pull a miracle out of his ass, saves the platform and delivers on his promises of free speech, we, the people, will be the biggest benefactors of this saga. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like it, share it, and of course subscribe to the channel and leave your comments down below.